Good morning. It's October 11th, 2024. We're critiquing the news. The article on your screen is from the Cairns Post and it's titled Axe the Sneaky Card Fees. To quote from the article, an MP has called on the Reserve Bank to nix surcharges on card transactions and tap-and-go phone payments, launching a petition to overhaul the pesky fee that costs Aussies $4 billion a year. That's money that's taken directly out of the productive economy and channeled to the banks and their overseas investors in the name of conducting transactions here in Australia that used to be entirely free when we only had cash. Now, this chap is an MP in Sydney, represents Bennelong, and it doesn't actually state which party he's with, and it doesn't really matter. The point is that he has very accurately identified a problem that's been growing over the years. Further down in the article, he's quoted as saying, "We're in the middle of a cost of living crisis. Consumers are being charged blended rates, 1.1% to 1.6%, and it all adds up. To consumers, that's around $140 a year. But it's worse than that. Let's just say it's 1%. Every time a $100 transaction is made, $1 goes off to the banks, purely for having in place a piece of software that allows the transaction to occur without cash. That's vastly in excess of what their costs would be to have built that software and to maintain that software. If I understand correctly, the actual FPOS point of sale, electronic funds transfer points of sale machines are paid for by the merchant. Say, for example, you had a $100 bill in cash and you bought a service, say you paid your pub bill, and the publican then went next door to the butcher's and used it to pay his butcher's bill. And the butcher then went down to the meatworks and used it to pay a bill there. And then the meatworks went over to the fuel company and used it to pay their bill. And the fuel company then used it to buy new tyres for their truck. No value's been taken out of the community in those transactions with that cash note. The cash $100 bill is still worth $100. You can have 100 different transactions, it's still worth $100. If that $100 was represented by just a pocket of digital money, and the bank was getting 1% of it each time, after 100 transactions, that money is gone from the community. Now, some will argue that it comes back as dividends to investors, but a lot of those investors aren't Australians, so it's being siphoned out of the Australian community. You can see now why central bank digital currencies are promoted so strongly by the central banks, by the privately owned central banks. And this brings me back to a favourite theme of mine. Why is our Reserve Bank of Australia, which is ostensibly publicly owned, always acting in lockstep with the foreign-owned private central banks? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't pass the pub test. There's been a lot of actions that they could have taken over the years to improve our circumstances, but they haven't, because that would mean going against the entirely profit-driven wishes of privately owned central banks elsewhere. So I always use as much cash as I can. At the start of my pay cycle, I get cash out, I keep it in my wallet, I carry my wallet with me, and when I want to make a transaction, I use cash. There are some things that I do use digital transactions for, such as paying the electricity bill online, because there's no longer an outlet in my community to pay it with cash. And if we don't defend cash, they're going to take the cash away, because with the digital currency, not only can they siphon as much money as they want off to themselves, they can geofence you. They can say, right, you've been paid $1,000, you can only spend it in your town, and you can only spend it at the corporate shops that they prefer. So they might have controlling interests in, say, Kmart and Woolworths. So you can go to those two shops, but you can't spend your money at the local butcher to buy fresh meat. You can't spend it at the vegetable store at the side of the road to buy fresh organic vegetables. You see how this works? Additionally, if you say something that they don't like, if you challenge their ideology on Facebook or whatever, then they can say, right, your $1,000 that you earned in this pay cycle, you can only buy $500 worth of value for that $1,000. So effectively, they can double the price of everything you buy, or they can just take it away from you. Okay, you've got no access to your account for a month as punishment for criticising our regime. Central bank digital currencies and the digital IDs that enable them to take complete control of our transactional system must be avoided at all costs. You know who wants to bring them in? The Labor Party and the Liberal Party. The Uni Party acting for the globalists in lockstep as usual. Cash and digital ID are two hills that if we lose those battles, we've lost. That's it. It'll be the jackboot of socialism stamping on the human face forever.